crystal clear water. I'm going to show you guys some of my tanks while I talk so you're not just staring at my mug. The very first thing that we got to deal with when we talk about crystal clear water is filtration, right? Filtration is an obvious thing that we all got to have. Thank you, Ken Anderson, for that $2.99. Super duper appreciate you. Besides filtration, the other thing that we have to worry about is our maintenance. These are things that aren't even really a tip. This is just the foundational stuff that we got to understand in order to have crystal clear water. If we don't have the proper filtration for both for our tank size and for the amount of fish that we keep, we got to have the right size filtration for that. Without that, you're not going to have crystal clear water. Number 2 is your maintenance, right? We've got to do water changes periodically on a schedule. Whatever your schedule is, you got to maintain those water changes, as well as cleaning your tank, the inside of your tank, as well as cleaning the inside of your filters. We got to do the maintenance. Without the maintenance, forget about it. There's nothing you could try. There's nothing you could do. There's no chemicals. There's no additives. Without doing the maintenance, you're not going to get crystal clear water. So let's move on from the foundation, and I'll give you guys a few of the tips. Stop clapping. I'm sorry. I know I'm loud. I'll stop. I know the microphone is right here, and it might sound really, really loud. So the first tip I'm going to give you guys, especially for you beginners that are here, if you just started this hobby, I know that you're going to have this problem because it happens to every single one of us when we start the hobby. You are absolutely, I guarantee it, 100% overfeeding your fish. Because when we get into this hobby, we have the mentality from childhood of how often we have to feed dogs and cats and things like that. Fish do not need to eat so much. I know you want to care for them and you want to love them and you want to make sure they're happy and fed, but they don't require that much food. I read somewhere that a fish's stomach is actually the size of their eyeball. Tiny, tiny little stomach. They will get full right away, but even when they're full, they're still going to act like they're hungry. So don't let them psych you out and make you think like, oh my God, they're starving. They're always starving. Not starving. They're always hungry. They're always going to want food. When you bring the bag of food to the tank, they'll come to you and beg, but don't let that trick you. Okay? They are happily fed. Fish can go quite a while without eating at all. So don't worry about not feeding them enough. So number 1, reduce your feedings. And I have a saying from a long time ago, some of you might remember, I suggest that you cut it in half. Cut your feedings in half and you will see a definite improvement in your water quality for a few reasons. 1, all that extra food that you're feeding that doesn't get eaten stays in your tank and it eventually dissolves and creates that cloudiness in your water. That's one reason, right? Another reason is by feeding more, the fish are going to eat more, which means they're going to poop more. And when fish poop more, you're increasing the ammonia, nitrites, and eventually the nitrates in your tank. All of that is going to also increase the cloudiness in your water. You don't want any of that extra waste in your tank because that's part of your maintenance like we talked about before, right? You've got to do your maintenance to get that stuff out. You don't want extra stuff in your tank. So reduce your feedings, okay? Tip number 2 is going to be your mechanical filtration inside your filters. Now, I say mechanical filtration because that's the main part of getting crystal clear water. Your biological filtration does play a role in it as well. You do have to have adequate biological filtration, but it's very minimal compared to the heaviness, the majority of your mechanical filtration. And when I say heavy, what I mean is you gotta have coarse, medium, and fine mechanical filtration in your filters. What I like to use, especially for beginners that have smaller filters like HOBs or small canister filters like 307s or 407s, is something called polyfill. Polyfill is very, very fine material that is going to catch those tiny little particles that are floating around in your water. So your coarse sponges, the thick big pads, are going to catch the actual like little pellets of poop that you see with your eye and you know it's in your tank. They're going to catch that and trap that. But those tiny little particles that basically just make your water look dirty, they're going to get right through those coarse ones and even through the medium ones. So what you need to have is fine mechanical filtration, and polyfill works great at that. It's going to catch and trap the tiniest of little particles in your water, making your water look crystal clear. Trust me, look into some polyfill. If you have a bigger tank with a bigger filter, like an FX6, I don't suggest using polyfill in an FX6 anymore because the FX6 is so powerful. You can sometimes get polyfill getting pushed through the filter and back out to your tank. So you don't want any of that. What I use in my FX6 instead is a fine filter pad. It's an actual pad made by Fluval. Or you can buy some aftermarket fine pads, about 100 microns. If you look for fine mechanical media, 100 microns, you can cut those to size and use those, same effect. Okay, next tip is gonna be a Wavemaker, guys. And I don't know if you can see the Wavemaker on the far right over there in my tank. I only got one Wavemaker in this 210 gallon tank. It's powerful enough to do what it needs to do in this whole tank. That's that Wavemaker. That Wavemaker is in my shop. You can go check it out. Now, a Wavemaker is going to help you guys for multiple reasons, right? One, when it comes to crystal clear water, the Wavemaker is going to help keep a flow of motion in your tank, meaning that there's no dead spots of water. So a Wavemaker, when your poop and detritus start to pile up somewhere in your tank and it doesn't reach your filter intakes, that's going to cause cloudy water. The Wavemaker is going to keep that detritus moving in your tank. You may think it defeats the purpose, right? Because you don't want that stuff floating around in your water, but actually you do. You want it to be floating around and moving around so that eventually it will find your filter's intake and get out of your tank. If it's stuck in your substrate behind the plant or behind the rock and it never gets to your filter, it's just sitting in your tank, dissolving and creating cloudy water. So a Wavemaker is absolutely going to help keep that stuff moving. The other thing a Wavemaker does is, if you've got it on top of your tank like I do, and you can almost see the surface there, it creates great surface agitation, which is going to help oxygenate your water. That's another super duper benefit of a Wavemaker. And lastly, if you have aggressive fish like African cichlids that I have right here, a Wavemaker is going to keep the flow moving, and the fish will be a little bit more distracted with that current and that flow, instead of being focused on attacking each other. So a Wavemaker helps in that way as well. Next, final tip that I got for you guys that's very super easy is something called a sponge filter. Sponge filters, I wish I was able to get a picture of it and show you guys right here. But if you don't know what a sponge filter is, quick Google search will show you exactly what a sponge filter looks like. It's just a coarse sponge with an air tube to it, and the air bubbles come out the top. A sponge filter is going to help in getting you crystal clear water because that thing is sitting inside your tank, and it soaks up the water into it, pulling and trapping little tiny pieces of particles right in the sponge filter. It works excellent. By adding a sponge filter, maybe even the next day, you'll start to see improvement in your water quality. That's one. Number two, the sponge filter also helps biologically, because now you created more surface area for beneficial bacteria to grow on, and they absolutely will grow on that sponge filter. Another good benefit of a sponge filter is that it is mobile, right? If you need to set up a new tank real quick, like a quarantine tank, if you just bought some new fish and you got to quarantine them real quick, or you got a sick fish in your tank and you got to remove them, put them in a hospital tank, you can remove that sponge filter from your tank, which has beneficial bacteria on it, put it into your quarantine or your hospital tank, and that tank is cycled immediately. You don't have to wait for a cycle. You don't have to add anything crazy. The bacteria on that sponge will cycle that quarantine tank, and you can put the fish in right away. That's awesome benefit to a sponge filter. Another benefit is, just like the Wavemaker, aeration. Those bubbles that come out of the sponge filter and break your surface are going to help aerating your tank. Every tank needs good aeration. And lastly, the sponge filter is like $10, super cheap, and it will definitely improve your water's clarity. Okay, guys, last tip that I'm going to give you for getting crystal clear water is chemical media. Now, chemical media, first I'm going to tell you that it is not absolutely necessary in your tank, like we just saw over in the video that we just watched. Chemical media is not necessary, but it will improve your water's quality. You can either use activated carbon, you can use ChemiPure Blue, which is essentially activated carbon with a little bit of Purigen in it, or you can use straight Purigen. Whatever chemical media you decide to use, it is absolutely going to help in clearing up your water. But chemical media does need to be replaced on about a monthly schedule. Do not just put it in your filters and leave it in there indefinitely, especially carbon, because carbon, once it's full and has finished absorbing all it can absorb, it releases all those organics right back into your water. We just talked about crystal clear water, guys. If you try any of those tips and you feel that you're still not where you want to be, then make sure to download my ebook on getting crystal clear water. There's even more tips on there. It'll be a digital copy that you keep forever, and you can always reference back to it in case you want to try something different, something new. Go get that ebook. It has helped a whole bunch of people. It used to be free. I had it for free for over a year, but it's been so successful and so many people have enjoyed it. I had to start charging for it because, like I said, I'm the only one sponsoring this channel. I gotta pay the bills. Okay, guys? Number 2, if you guys are interested in African cichlids, I have a free webinar course. This webinar is free. You just go sign up, hit your email, and you can join in on the webinar. I'm giving you the top 3 secrets of what you need to know to keep African cichlids. Don't feel intimidated. It is not as difficult as many think that it is. It's not really that hard, especially if you have some guidance from a webinar like this. I also have a full paid course that is optional at the end of the free webinar. If you want to take advantage of it, you can. Okay, guys? Last but not least, let me show you guys the channel's membership. We have a membership here on KaveMan Aquatics. If you decide to support the channel with your membership, you get a couple of extra perks. So if you feel like you want to support the channel membership is the way to do it. Links to all that stuff I just discussed are in the description below. Use the master link and you can access all that stuff that I just talked about.